That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to AI Arms Race, Leading Without Losing, a special 5-part pulse check series from Enrollify. I'm Dr. Scott Cline, a 20-year higher education executive turned consultant. In this series, we'll be going behind closed doors to hear the real conversations happening within higher education admissions and high school leaders. We'll explore how AI is already being reshaping admissions and why few want to be the first to admit that they're using it, for fear of triggering an arms race. Together, we'll ask, how can you bring what's already happening into the open without feeling the very competition we're trying to avoid? Today, I'm joined by Dr. Steve Ostendorff, a strategic enrollment and marketing leader with over 2 decades of experience in driving growth and innovation in higher education. Currently serves as the Dean of Admissions at Molloy University. He has led record-breaking enrollment through data-informed strategies, advanced CRM integrations, and financial aid optimization, and the use of ethical AI in recruitment. With a background spanning private, urban, and mission-driven institutions, he is known for collaborative leadership, taking a tech-forward approach to enrollment management and a future-focused mindset when it comes to student engagement and retention. Welcome, Steve, to the podcast.
Thank you, Scott. Happy to be here.
Great to have you on the show today. We're going to jump right in and talking about AI and admissions and this important conversation. So the first question up for you is, where are you seeing AI, and particularly AI agents, being used in the higher education admissions today by colleges and universities?
Truthfully, just about everywhere. Offices that have fully embraced AI are using it to help them with developing communications. They're using it to help them understand and see their students in new ways, talking to students through emails and text messages, and even AI agents making phone calls. They're using AI in their application processing in order to become more efficient and help give their admissions counselors and their reviewers a better sense of who their students are. And they're doing it in financial aid, and they're using it in advising and all the way through the life cycle of the student. Some schools have embraced it more than others. Some are using ChatGPT, and that's as far as they're going. And some have really bought in and brought it all the way throughout the funnel. So it's really going to be specific to individual institutions as to how far they go. This train is moving, and if you're not going to incorporate it into your admissions process, you're going to get hit by the train, because all the schools are going to be jumping on real soon.
Does any of this actually worry you about how quickly institutions might be running into it? And if so, in what ways does that worry you?
No, actually, I don't. That doesn't worry me at all. Much like email, the advent of some schools didn't want to have websites because they didn't want to have that kind of information on the internet. They didn't want to use Facebook. They were worried about what students were going to say about them online where everybody could read it. And now they've all embraced social media and all of those tools. AI is that next frontier. And so the idea of utilizing an AI recruiter to humanize the process, and I know that sounds weird, right? Because it's a robot. But if we use AI recruiters to help qualify people who are interested in our programs, qualify people who are interested in our school, and get them in to talk to our counselors, it frees our counselors up from doing a lot of that cold calling, from doing a lot of that manual work. And so it allows them to have better conversations with students. Do I think that some schools can use it absolutely wrong? Sure. But they're also using Facebook wrong and the internet wrong, and you look at their websites and they're wrong too. And so the schools that do it right and embrace it are going to do great with it. And the ones that are going to need more time, they'll develop it over as we go. But I'm not worried about the use of AI. If anything, I'd be worried about the misuse. Right? Not getting student permission, not thinking about the ethical boundaries, not double checking the work that comes out of it, not training the AI right. But I'm not worried about its use.
That's great. And then as an executive leader on campuses, how are those conversations going internally, those closed door conversations with the upper level leadership of a college or university, or particularly how are you hearing your other colleagues as they're engaging those conversations that might be happening, as perceived as behind the closed doors? How are those conversations going right now as you evaluate options and pathways forward?
I'm sure those conversations are happening on a spectrum, right? I think there are some places that are approaching AI with absolute fear of what it means, what it entails, what it's going to do, how it's going to impact staffing, how it's going to impact the view of the institution in the eyes of the public, and approaching it from fear. And then there's others that are complete embracing of the idea that this technology is not going anywhere, that it's going to be part of higher education, corporate work, and just about every aspect of our lives going forward. My son had a baseball practice last night. I was talking to one of the dads, and I heard his son talking about how he's 7 years old throwing a cutter. I asked him, I'm like, how did he learn how to throw a cutter? He's like, ChatGPT taught my son how to throw a cut fastball, right? And so kids are growing up with this technology. And if we're not embracing it now, we're not preparing those students for careers of the future. And if there's a place that should be preparing kids for the careers of the future, it's higher education. So the schools that are openly embracing it on that other end of the spectrum are going to be doing a better service for everyone. I think the biggest part of the conversations we've had have cycled around, is this going to impact staffing? Is this going to replace jobs? And what I have seen is it doesn't. It changes the nature of work. It changes the work that we do, but it hasn't replaced a single person at our institution. And I will say yet, but I don't believe that it will. Maybe that's a little naive of me, possibly, but I don't think that it will. What about the environmental impact of AI and how you cool that? So from an environmental degradation standpoint and an overuse and consumption of water. But like all technology, right? And listen, Google's been doing this for many years, so has Samsung. So of all these companies that have been involved in AI long before now, if higher education says we're going to opt out of this because we're worried about the environmental impact, then we have no financial stake in changing it, right? If we're working with the companies that are doing it and we're paying them, we can then have some impact on how we talk to them about what we expect from an environmental impact. We have to be in the field in order to be in the conversation. The last concern is the loss of self. Is the institution going to lose itself a little bit? Are we going to lose a little bit of who we are if AI is doing the work for us and not a human? And so those conversations can move the appetite for whether AI should be coming or not coming, or how fast we want to implement at an institution.
You remind me of conversations I had with an amazing faculty member that I knew for years and became a chair of our first year program. And he was always talking about, like, everything we teach, students can find this on YouTube right now. Yeah, and it's not about the individual content. You bring up like, how did you learn how to throw a slider or something like that, or a cutter? Like ChatGPT. So I'm also hearing from you kind of this throughput of like, this is, in some ways could be revolutionary from a technology standpoint, but really it's more about a continuation and approaching it in that vein of like, this is the evolution that we've always been going through, and it might be getting faster, it might change in a little bit of a way, but more so it's actually that, the continuity of change that we've always been seeing in higher education from, and particularly in the admission space, where it's just becoming more of what we've seen in the past, and how do we approach it? And maybe some of those tool sets of how we approached that in the past are the ones that we should be approaching when we're talking about AI conversations, particularly when we're doing it, in our partnership with high school students and high school leaders as well.
I don't see this as being significantly different than innovations that have happened in the past. I just feel like we're stacking innovations much faster now. When I started in higher education, I had Excel sheets and access lists, and that's how we managed our student information. We didn't have CRMs. We didn't have the internet. It was a very different world. I mean, the internet existed, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't used the same way. And we have progressed very quickly. And I think that's where some of the hesitation comes from, right? Is how fast is too fast? How much is too much? And are we going to lose ourselves in this process? And I think if we approach AI like we approached CRMs and all those tools strategically and thoughtfully, we can ensure that we don't lose ourselves while building in the efficiencies that we need as we continue to exist in a do more with less position on campuses. We need to recruit more students, but our office stays the same size. We need to read more applications, but our processing team stays the same size. And so how do we get through those faster? We bring in tools that help us do that, and AI is one of those tools.
Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Southeast Missouri State University needed to launch more targeted campaigns faster, yet they were bogged down by manual campaign builds, slow approvals, and vendor overload. With Element 451, they eliminated 5 vendor tools and gained marketing superpowers in one platform. They saw a 13% increase in applications, processed applications within 2 days, and achieved 33 to 35% email open rates. The impact: personalized, automated campaigns running at scale without the drag. Ready to turn your next campaign around in hours, not weeks? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents.
There's always this conversation right now that's going on where, like, the high school students, and there's, this fear that they're using AI to write their essays or help them with their applications, or down into the curriculum, how they're using AI, and is that changing grades and GPAs and outcomes. On the flip side, you're talking about, and we're talking about, having admissions teams using this in all facets, from marketing to, helping students answer questions, to potentially using it for evaluation of applications and maybe even some decision making along the way, or aid leveraging. So do you think there's this reluctance and this fear of being able to say that if we talk about it on the university side openly and out loud, that it will somehow create the space that is like, okay, well, if you're using it, we on the high school side, or the high school student side, is like, well, we can use it too. What's the solutions to that?
I agree. That's a fear. I guess my question is, if we're not going to be open and talking about a technology that exists, and we're not going to teach a technology that exists at the higher education level, how are we preparing our students for the careers that are going to be utilizing it? Mm-hmm. We have a faculty member at Molloy who got his PhD in AI in 1996. AI is not new. It's been used in industry for decades. But this advent of having it in your pocket is it's very different, right? We have ChatGPT in our pocket. We've got Gemini in Google. We've got AI surrounding us at all times. And if we're not going to embrace it, we're going to make it the apple on the tree, right? We can't touch it. We can't eat it, or we're going to get kicked out of the Garden of Eden kind of thought process. And that's not the way it should be looked at. It should be looked at and embraced. The argument about the essay, I have had this conversation multiple times. We are not having conversations about people paying $10,000 for a college advisor, right, to help them formulate and craft, and in some cases write their essay. But we're having the conversation around having AI do that for people who can't afford, right? So it becomes more of a socioeconomic argument than it is about a cheating argument, right? Because we've always accepted that level of support for students who could pay for it. But now that everybody has it in their pocket, now we're starting to get worried about it being utilized. I've also heard an argument that if admissions counselors are using AI to help process applications, and students are using AI to help do applications, are robots accepting robots to college? There's something flippant and there's something a little far-fetched in there, but it's an interesting thought process. But there are tools, and great tools, that are out there that help students use AI to help them say what they want to say without writing it for them. And that's what we should be teaching students. How do we use AI ethically? How do we use it right? How do we make sure that they understand how to use it? And that's what needs to seep into our curriculum, both at the high school and the college level. I think one of the biggest skills that's going to come out of this, we had to learn how to do search when we had the card catalogs in the library, and we had to learn how to do it when there was microfiche. We had to learn how to do search when in Google, and figure out how to write a good Google search to find what we're looking for. Prompt development is that next piece. How do we ask AI and put the guardrails in place so that it gives us the answer we're looking for? Because garbage in is garbage out. So if we don't write the right prompt, we're getting the wrong answers. And as good as AI is, it's not reading our minds yet. So developing that skill set on how to use AI and how to write the prompt and how to get out of it what we're looking for, it's a really important skill that's going to be needed. And I don't think we should be afraid to teach it at both the high school, even into the middle and elementary school levels, all the way through college at this point.
You bring up this really strong theme around, arguments for or against, but they seem to be like that's the tip of the sword. And I was recently talking to another university leader who's really trying to figure out, like, how do I get my leadership team? He's at the executive leadership team of his university. How do we get my fellow executives up to a level to be able to even start to have conversations? And so, what do you have any thoughts on, how you actually get your fellow leaders up to a high enough level of being informed to be able to jump past those first argument points and really start to dive into the complexities that we do have to grapple with and talk about as we go through this technology change?
It's exposing them to information about it. I don't think there's a conference I've been to in the last 2 years that have not had some sort of session on AI, right? Where you get to, and a lot of my learning has come from people who are thinking about this in a different way than I am. And so I think that's part of it. Webinars and conversations like this that are going to be podcasts that are going to get out to folks. And listening with an open ear, I think, is a really good piece, right? I'm very opinionated about this. I consider myself an AI enthusiast, not an expert, but an enthusiast. But every time I hear an argument, I have to think around it first before I speak, right? If someone is pushing to say that this may not be the right direction to go, I can't just jump in and be all, oh, no, you're wrong, I'm right, let's move forward, right? That just wouldn't be a fair way to go about it. But listening deeply about what they're thinking and where their fears are and where those fears are coming from and what those hesitations are, helps move that conversation along. And then I think for many people, it comes down to return on investment, right? What is the return on investment of using an AI? How can we save money? How can we even turn revenue based on using this tool? And that comes down to understanding that if I'm paying X number of dollars for an AI recruiter, right, that's going to talk to 70,000 students or 80,000 students or 100,000 students or even 500,000 students, how many people did I need to hire to do that work? Right? And if they're able to convert X number of students, what's our net tuition revenue based on those students being converted because they had those conversations that I wouldn't have had a person to have that conversation for? On the financial aid side, is the AI able to communicate with enough students who are in verification that would have been stuck in verification and never moved forward, right? Now to finish the process and come through and then become a matriculated student in the fall, how much revenue could have been lost by not having it there? And so you start having those meaningful conversations about how, as great as the people that you have on campus are, can the AI fill a void for them? Can it help them get through some of the things that are just dragging them down from getting their work done and give them more time to really focus in on the students who are being more active and more engaged with the institution?
And I pick up from this, all your points here is one of the tried and true advices that I've had is about trying to understand a different population. In this case, we might be talking about high school students if we're talking about traditional first year or a community college student or older adults who are coming back or retraining, whatever your campus population that you're serving is, actually go yourself, walk in those other people's shoes. I've been humbled so many times going out with the recruitment team. I don't know, you probably tried this as well, like trying to hold the high school students' attention at 8 a.m. in the first period class or something like that. And that's where we need more faculty, more leaders, more people spending their time as well and hearing directly from, I think in this conversation, is how high school students are experiencing this AI revolution as well.
Yeah, it's meeting them where they are, right? And this goes for all three of those populations you talk about, right? Those high school students, they are in class from 7 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then they either have part-time jobs, they go home to take care of a brother or a sister, they play sports, they're in clubs, they're doing drama. They have very busy lives. And then mom and dad say, hey, did you ever call Molloy because they had sent you something? And the student says, no, I'll call them when I can. And at 9 o'clock on a Thursday, they make a phone call. And guess what? They can't get any answers because it's 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. I have an AI they can call and get the answers that they're looking for, right? And so we're meeting that student. We're giving them a resource that they didn't have, whether that's a chat bot on the website or a AI recruiter who can answer the phone. We're giving them an option. Think about the adult learner, right? You've got a 47-year-old mother of two who works 9 to 6 most days, then runs after school to go to their parents' house to pick their kids up or whoever their babysitter is. And by the time they're able to get those kids in bed, showered, have dinner, the whole 9 yards, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. They don't have anybody to touch base with, right? There's no one to answer that question. But the school that can answer the question is the school that they'll end up going to. And that's where it becomes really kind of cool how the AI expands our availability to students who need availability at different times.
Do you have any recommendations for particularly fellow colleagues of yours who are at that higher ed leader level, to have more of these conversations open? Because we're also at a time where trust in higher education generally is at an all-time low. And so what's your suggestions for leaders that are sitting on the college campuses and universities to make sure that, high schools, both students and the people who work there as well can hear from how we're approaching AI and AI agents and admissions?
Be a lifelong learner, I think, is the biggest key here, right? If we fear the technology, then we exude that fear to others. If we are open to that technology and we're open to the conversations and we employ the technology openly and honestly and thoughtfully, more people will buy into it, right? And so it's really about understanding who you are, understanding your culture, and fitting it in where you can, and start slow, right? We didn't get to an AI recruiter on day one, right? We started incorporating ChatGPT into our communications and helping to find ways to do that. We went to a number of conferences and saw the tools that were out there and brought the conversations back to have them here. And it was a lot of like, oh, that's creepy. Oh, that's weird. But eventually you break down some of those initial hesitancies. And then once you get it on there, then everybody wants an AI in their office. And so it's just being open to learning, open to seeing, and open to the idea that this technology is not going anywhere. I'd rather use it than get hit by it. Right? If all my competitors are using it and we're not, they're going to be more successful than we are.
Well, thank you, Steve, for coming on the podcast and sharing all these insights. It's been wonderful. Where can people find you online when they want to continue this conversation with you?
The best place is to find me on LinkedIn/my last name, Ostendorff. Definitely hit me with a direct message. Let's have some conversations. I post about AI and admissions quite often. Speak at a number of conferences when I get invited. I'm an enthusiast. I love the space. I love what it's doing. I know there are flaws. I get that there are flaws, but I think the benefits outweigh the flaws at the moment, and everything just keeps iterating and getting better. So I hope that we have the opportunity to connect and have some more conversations.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.